Napalm Burst is actually broken. No, seriously, it's actually broken. There is not one, but two augments that just simply do nothing. And believe me, you might just be using the wrong augments anyway. But that doesn't mean that Napalm Burst is entirely useless. I've got the stats and the facts, and today we're going over the best augments for Napalm Burst. As always with these analytical videos, I will use chapters to separate everything so you can jump to whatever section you're most interested in, or to the end for the final results. Now, at the time of making this video, yes, Napalm Burst has two augments that are currently not working. But if Treyarch does fix Napalm Burst here relatively soon, I will put a pinned comment in the comment section below, navigating you guys to an updated video where I go over the fixed augments. I just don't know how fast that'll be or if they're even aware of this problem because I've seen no one else talking about it. Enough chit chat, let's talk about base Napalm Burst. Bullets deal fire damage. Each bullet has a chance to apply a burn effect on normal and special enemies, dealing damage over time. Very simple, very straightforward. You shoot a zombie and then it lights on fire and it has a burning effect. Jumping over to the stats, we can see that Napalm Burst has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Now, when I was testing this, of course, I was getting a good amount of 17 and 18 seconds, but like with all ammo mods, that's probably just the probability that the bullet is actually going to activate Napalm Burst. By default, Napalm Burst will kill 3 zombies. Well, sort of. The burn duration lasts for 5 seconds or 5 ticks. You get 5 ticks of damage. The burn size is about 1 to 2 meters as a radius. It's incredibly small, but this doesn't work like a normal radius like Shatter Blast or something where it's going to affect all of the zombies within that radius. It's only going to max out at 3 zombies. So you activate it on 1 and it will spread to 2 more within that radius. In terms of the initial / tick damage, there's a couple different things. Either the initial damage is glitched right now and it isn't affecting any zombie, or the initial damage is the same exact damage as the tick damage. As you can see in the gameplay, we activate it on a zombie and it's dealing the same exact damage every single tick. There's no difference between that initial damage and the tick damage afterwards. And that tick damage is about 20% of the round zombie health, which is awesome because 20% of the zombie round health, and if it's active for 5 ticks of damage, that is going to equal 100% damage. So in theory, 5 ticks of 20% health should kill 100% of the time those 3 zombies that it activates on. And for half the time, that is absolutely true. Now, the other half of the time, it doesn't kill zombies. The reason, well, we'll get into a little bit later. In terms of special enemy damage, it's the exact same damage. It doesn't seem to have any difference with the initial damage or the tick damage. There's 5 ticks of damage. That's all I can see. And it's important to note, this is the zombie health, not the special enemy health. If I could spell special right, there you go. And we'll take a look at those numbers at health cap, don't you worry. As far as elemental weaknesses, manglers and abominations are weak to this. They will deal, you will deal 50% of your bullet damage whenever you have Napalm Burst equipped. And this is 75% if you have Vulnerabine, but by default, it's 50%. But now let's talk about why some of the times this damage isn't exactly 20% and doesn't always kill zombies. Taking a look at this chart, we have the augments we're using, the enemy we're using it against, the round we're on, the damage that damage deals, those ticks, the zombie health at that round, and then we calculate the percentage of health. So I was doing this on round 11 like I always do, and I was getting 125 consistently. I was like, great, 20% on the dot, looks awesome. Mangler, same exact thing, the tick damage, all of the stuff, dealing 30%, basically 30%. That's that 50% increase. Because they are weak to Napalm Burst, I should say bullet damage. We'll just do all damage there because the actual effect is increased when you are attacking the manglers. But we're not talking about that. As I was doing other tests, I was playing a game of Citadel de Mort and I was using Napalm Burst against the Doppelgast to test the normal specials. Since the Doppelgasts are not weak to Napalm Burst like the manglers are, I wanted to get a good reading, and yep, there you go. That's about 20%. Interesting. And then on round 12, we were dealing 141 tick damage to the base zombie, which is only 19.89%. This is horrible. And let me tell you why. Whenever you activate Napalm Burst, there are only 5 ticks of damage. If that damage is a full 20%, like we tested out on round 11, that means 20 times 5 is 100% damage. You are guaranteed 3 kills. However, if that damage is only 19.9% damage, you multiply that by 5, that is not 100%. That is just slightly under 100%, which means that sometimes, depending on the round and the rounding that the game does to calculate this damage, you can activate Napalm Burst and only kill the one activated zombie. And you're only killing that first zombie because you have that bullet damage that you initiated Napalm Burst with. This little aspect of Napalm Burst is horrible, but it comes into play when we're picking our augments. And of course, practically speaking, your horde is gonna be damaged by your FMJs, by your penetration damage, by the random damage of your dead wire, your random damage of your grenades, whatever the case may be. So practically, this might not be as big of an issue, but especially if you're really relying on Napalm Burst to kill zombies, it can be big down the road, and I'll show you why later. Now we need to move on to the augments, starting with the simplest, Big Game. Big Game makes it so that Napalm Burst can burn elite enemies, and that is exactly what it does. Unfortunately, that damage is still just 20% of the round zombie health. Now, knowing the Abomination is weak to Napalm Burst, you might be thinking that adding on Big Game would be amazing. Well, you'd be dead wrong. Like with other damage dealing aspects in Black Ops 6 Zombies, the Abomination has a damage modifier that heavily reduces all incoming damage. This, unfortunately, includes the Napalm Burst effect of Big Game. But just how bad is it? Well, you will deal a pitiful 6% of the round zombie health towards the Abomination. To put that into perspective, your bullets will most likely deal more damage than each tick of damage of Napalm Burst on an Abomination, even at health cap. Now, I do have to mention every single time I bring up Big Game, whether it's the elites or the special enemies, it takes forever to activate your ammo mod on these special and elite enemies. So much so that it does affect the usefulness of Big Game. Most of the time, I've already killed most of the special or elite before Big Game even activates. And sometimes when there's other zombies in the way, you're activating your ammo mod on the regular zombies anyway. So every time I make one of these augment reviews and we talk about Big Game, I just have to mention it. But now let's move on to Thermite. Thermite increases the burn effect damage, and that is exactly what I found. Instead of dealing 19 or 20% damage, Thermite will raise this by 50% to 29% of the base zombie round health. And luckily, this does guarantee the 3 kills now. Because we're dealing, a third of the zombie's health and we got 5 ticks, we can easily get over 100%. So if you're looking for those 3 easy kills, then there you go. This does also raise the Mangler bonus damage to 44.8%, which is really nice. And yes, that's going to pair pretty good with something else in the future. Unfortunately, Thermite will not increase your bullet damage towards Manglers or Abominations. It only increases the burning effect. And I know I said this guarantees the 3 kills, but also it seems to be every other round where the zombie round health is 20%. So every other round, if you just run this just for the 3 kills of zombies, it's kind of pointless because half the time you are going to be getting these kills and then half the time you aren't. So if they just need to fix and buff this so that it's 21%, and that would solve everything, or at least most things. Thermite is good in a situation, just not against normal zombies. What is good against normal zombies, great even, is Firebomb. Firebomb makes it so that burned enemies explode on death, spreading the fire to nearby enemies. Firebomb is not only a great reference to Black Ops 4, but it's also the best augment of Napalm Burst. Because with this effect, when I first read this, I thought, okay, 3 zombies are gonna spread it to like 3 more zombies, right? Because the initial Napalm Burst is 3 zombies, I thought those 3 zombies would spread it to 3 more zombies, so it'd be like 9 zombies total. That is not the case. Firebomb works just like Shatterblast or Deadwire or any other of these area of effect attacks, where every single zombie within this 1 to 2 meter radius will be caught on fire and get the Napalm Burst effect. Now, the Napalm Burst effect is still 20%, and it's unfortunate that we can't add on this Thermite effect so that it's a guaranteed kill, because this Firebomb is really, really good. Still not as good as the perfect augment combination of Shatterblast, just saying, but they are somewhat comparable. And I know what you're thinking. You have your 3 initial zombies, they die, they explode, and they infect all the other zombies within that range to have that Napalm Burst effect. What happens when those zombies die? Do they have this like chain reaction? And no, that's not the case. I believe that was the case at launch, and we'll talk about that later. But you have your first initial 3 zombies that get the Napalm Burst effect. Those explode and die, and then that is it. The zombies that are affected by those explosions and have their Napalm Burst effect, those will just simply die normally. It does not start a chain reaction. Now, even though we can't guarantee the 20% damage, what we could do with Firebomb is pair it up with our first minor augment, Extension. Extension simply increases the burn duration. And I tell you, when I first was doing this, remember I was doing this on round 11 where every single zombie was dying and I saw this extension, I thought, this is useless. This is so stupid. Like, why would you want to extend this beyond the 5 seconds? Because you're 100% killing zombies either way. But because sometimes for half the rounds, you're only dealing that 19% damage, all of a sudden extension works really well, because instead of just 5 ticks of damage, we get a whopping 10 ticks of damage. This is incredibly good, specifically for special and elite enemies. This is essentially doubling the damage against those special and elite enemies. Because the round health is so low, adding on extension is going to extend the damage and double the amount of damage you're dealing to those special and elite enemies. Again, if you have big game on for the elite enemies, you guys understand. And adding on extension will guarantee all of the zombies that are affected with Napalm Burst are killed. And I think you could see where we're going with from all of these augments. But now we have to talk about the only 2 augments that don't work here, and that's going to be Incendiary and Contact Burn. So let's tackle these one at a time. Talking about Contact Burn is supposed to have that initial burn effect deal more damage. Now I'm going to throw up gameplay for you of me using Contact Burn, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't see any initial damage happening. I only ever see the 5 ticks of damage. Now this could very well be because the entire ammo mod of Napalm Burst is broken, because now I'm going to switch the gameplay over to regular Napalm Burst. This is just base Napalm Burst, no augments. I still don't see an initial difference of the initial damage versus the tick damage. They both look the same to me. Now going back over to Contact Burn, I don't see a difference between these two. I legitimately don't. If anybody knows if I'm just looking at the wrong thing, I've looked at the health bars, I've looked at the damage numbers, they look identical. Now I don't know if this is just Contact Burn not working, or if Napalm Burst is supposed to have that first tick of damage be a little bit more. Like the first tick is this big damage, and then the 4 other ticks are supposed to be, you know, a little bit like 20%. Like if it's supposed to deal 30% at first and then 20% for the other 4 ticks. You guys get what I'm saying. I don't know if that's broken or if just this augment is broken. But from everything I've tested, there seems to be zero noticeable difference with Contact Burn and base Napalm Burst. Which brings us to the biggest, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking augment, Incendiary. Incendiary is supposed to make it so that each damage tick has a small chance to spread to a nearby enemy. How excited was I to test this out, especially with Firebomb. If you don't know, way back when Black Ops 6 first began, pairing up these two was a horde clearing machine. Now they nerfed it since then, but I don't know if they broke it all the way back then and we just didn't notice it because I didn't test it, we weren't really talking about it, or if they broke it somewhat relatively recently. Because again, I'm showing you gameplay, so once you activate Napalm Burst, there's a small chance that the effect goes to other zombies, but every time I did this for like 4 or 5 rounds straight, and I saw absolutely zero spreading of this Napalm Burst effect. Zero. Now then I thought, okay, maybe it's not the 3 zombies spreading it to other zombies. Maybe it's like you activate Napalm Burst on 1 zombie, and then that zombie can spread it to 2 more zombies if it's within range. Like you shot a zombie on its own, and oh my goodness, it activated, but it was just the 1 zombie. So as it got closer to the pack, maybe then it spread. And I tested that out a couple times, and no, that didn't seem to be the case either. So either this has an extraordinarily small chance to activate, in which case it's practically useless, or I'm testing out the wrong thing and I'm looking at this all the wrong way. I don't know how that would be. I feel like I understand English pretty well, but I've been known to have been wrong quite a bit actually. I'm wrong about a lot of things. But that's why I want to get this video out to you and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? Look at these tests. What could I be doing better? Because I don't know. So with the huge disappointment that Incendiary and Contact Burn, arguably two of the biggest minor augments of this entire Napalm Burst, not working, what does work? I know a lot of people love Napalm Burst for targeting the Manglers and the Abominations for that extra damage, so the first thing I thought of was adding Thermite and Extension for that. You could also do Extension and Big Game for this, so that way it affects the Abominations. But having Thermite and Extension will mean that you're dealing 10 ticks of damage of 29% of the zombie round health. Now, what does that look like? Well, let's take a look back here at this chart. I need to change this to make it look like not just a wall of pointless numbers, but if we take a look at health cap, you could see at the base Napalm Burst, you're dealing, 50,000 Well, if it's a true 20%, you're dealing 50,000 damage to all the zombies and all of the special enemies and the elite enemies if you have the big game on, which is, you know, a fifth of their health. It's not great. If you put on Thermite, you're dealing a little bit more damage, but it's still 72 out of 250 out of a million. It's still not that much. It's good, but it's not great. But then just putting on Extension, like I said, you're doubling that damage. So now you're dealing 100,000 to your special enemies of your mimics and your doppelgasts. That's like over a third of their health. That's not bad. That's actually pretty practical now. It's still just 10% of the elite health, but if we then put on Thermite and Extension, now we're dealing 145,000 damage, which is over half of the special enemy health in just one activation. And that's, you know, 15% of the elite health, which is still, you know, it's respectable. It's, you know, pretty common for the ammo mods, it looks like. But then, of course, when you add in the Mangler weakness, you are dealing 224,000 damage of their 250,000 damage. That is so darn good against the Manglers. Plus, if you add in the bullets you'd need to activate Napalm Burst to start this effect, you're probably one-shotting Manglers with a single Napalm Burst effect at health cap. And finally, let's take a look at the best case scenario towards the Abomination. Abomination plus big game plus Extension. This gives us a whopping 30,000 damage total against Abominations at health cap. Remember, that's after 10 seconds of tick damage. So if you run big game and Extension against an Abomination, you're doing 3% total after that Napalm Burst activation of big game. 3% of the Abomination's health at health cap. Once again, your bullets are going to be much better than each tick of Napalm Burst. So Thermite and Extension, pretty darn good for taking care of those Manglers, and pretty decent for special enemies too. But I know I am most interested in how we kill zombies. And so I decided to do exactly what I did with Shatterblast, and I grouped together a huge horde of zombies. I activated Napalm Burst, and I counted how many Napalm Burst kills I got within that group of zombies. And the very first thing I tried has been the augment combination that I've been running, Firebomb and Incendiary. As a reminder, Incendiary seems to be broken, and that definitely looks to be the case even in these practical tests as well. And in fact, you can see kind of what rounds were and were not working with the Napalm Burst effect. For example, the very first activation I got with Firebomb and Incendiary, I only killed a singular zombie because the other zombies had, you know, 99.9% of their health taken away from Firebomb or Napalm Burst, and they had that 0.1 or 0.5% of their health remaining. And that was the case for a lot of these kills here. Only 3 kills in this activation, only 7 kills, 8 kills. This is terrible. But then you could see probably around here, I like turned around and I went to the next round. And now for all of these kills, 16, 29, 11, 16, 19, 22. Great. Oh man, this looks awesome. All because of that weird like 19.9% damage that the zombie takes that needs to be fixed. They learned this lesson with Shatterblast. Shatterblast dealt 51% of damage. They just need to make this 21% of damage, and then this would be such a good ammo. It would be so good, especially with Firebomb. But then you could see I got done because I killed so many zombies in this round. I moved to the next round, and we're back dealing 5 kills, 4 kills, 7 kills, 3 kills. Again, all because of this stupid 19.9% damage here. Now, this also served a good secondary test for Contact Burn, because if Contact Burn was dealing extra damage that I couldn't see, then we would 100% be getting more kills. And as you can see, that's not the case. Yes, we get good 16 kills here, 8, 13, 10, 7, but then we go back down, you know, 7 kills, 6 kills, 1 kill with Contact Burn and Firebomb. And then we probably turn around again. We got 23, 26, 11, 11, 9, 13, and then we probably turn around again. And then there's 3, 8, 7, 2 kills, 8 with Contact Burn and Firebomb with extra damage and the ability to spread that extra damage to other zombies, and we're only killing 1, 2 zombies. These 2 tests all but confirm that these 2 augments are seriously broken. But of course, you're not here for what's broken, you're here for what works. And what works is Firebomb and Extension. You could see all of the lower numbers are all but completely wiped. The lowest we get is 6, 9, and that's it. And those 2 may very well be because, you know, I lit Napalm Burst at the edge of the horde and they didn't spread to other zombies, but nowhere are we getting 1, 2, or 3 kills with a Firebomb and Extension. We are averaging almost 15 kills per activation. So if you are running Napalm Burst and you want to kill regular zombies, Firebomb and Extension are the way to go. And Treyarch, if you're gonna fix Incendiary and Contact Burn, please fix base Napalm Burst to where it'll deal 21% of the base zombie health. That would make everything so much more consistent. It would be so much better. I would love that. And I would love it because this is one of the biggest questions that I had going in. We know how Firebomb works, right? We described it. The 3 zombies get infected, then they explode, and then all of those zombies will die. But what happens with Incendiary? What if those 3 zombies get infected and then they spread to other zombies and then those zombies die? Will those zombies just die? Or because of Firebomb, will they be part of the initial burning of, group of zombies, and then they all explode, and then we get even more kills and even more, kills for Napalm Burst? Like, that would be so darn good. There is so much potential. And then Contact Burn, raising that initial damage, pairing that with the elites with big game, and then abominations and even manglers. Like, dude, this ammo mod could be one of the best in the game. But as it stands right now, with the broken augments, outside of the elemental damage for Patient 13 and obviously manglers and abominations, this is, in terms of just ammo mods and killing zombies, worse than Shatterblast, and almost as bad as Shadow Rift, even though I probably want to test that again because a lot of you guys said it's really good, but we'll see. I don't know, but only getting 10 to 15 kills, Shatterblast can do more with the right augments, of course. And then, of course, everyone likes Lightning Strike Deadwire because it takes all the zombies to like 40% of their health, but I could see Napalm Burst really competing with Shatterblast and Deadwire if these things are fixed. So let's recap. Base Napalm Burst has a 15-second cooldown. It is a guaranteed to kill at least 1 zombie, but sometimes 3 zombies depending on what round you're on. Zombies will burn for 5 ticks or for 5 seconds, and the burn size is about a 1 to 2 meter radius. As it stands right now, there is no difference between the initial damage and the tick damage, and this is going to be either 19.9% or 20% of the round zombie health. It all depends on the health of the zombie at that round. Sometimes the number rounds up to 20, sometimes the number rounds down to 19.9. If it's a round where it has 20%, you will get guaranteed 3 kills. If it's a round where it's 19.9%, you're going to get zombies with just a sliver of health and only kill 1 zombie per activation. And of course, manglers and abominations are weak to Napalm Burst, and you will deal 50% extra damage. Big Game makes it so that Napalm Burst activates on elite enemies. Unfortunately, this is still the 20% of the zombie round health, and for abominations, it's a measly 6% of the round zombie health, thanks to that weird damage modifier that the abominations have. Thermite gives a 50% increase in damage, meaning you will deal 29% of the zombie round health. And yes, the 50% bonus damage also stacks with Thermite for manglers, but this does not affect the elemental damage that your guns do. Firebomb makes it so that any zombie initially activated with Napalm Burst will explode on death, and all of the zombies within that 2 meter radius will now have the Napalm Burst effect. However, when those zombies die, they will not explode, they will not spread this Firebomb effect, they will simply die. Extension extends the 5 ticks of damage all the way up to 10 ticks of damage. Now, if Treyarch decides to buff the round zombie health to be a guaranteed 20 or 21% of the round health, then Extension will be completely useless for base zombies because 5 ticks of the 20% round health should kill zombies. But if Napalm Burst is never changed, then the 10 ticks will guarantee those zombies will die from Napalm Burst every time. And unfortunately, at the moment, Incendiary and Contact Burn are both bugged. Incendiary is supposed to have a small chance of spreading the Napalm Burst effect to other zombies, but from all of my testing, that isn't the case. Contact Burn is supposed to increase the initial damage, but once again, from all of my testing, there doesn't seem to be any initial damage increase. So either Napalm Burst is bugged where it doesn't have an initial damage, or this augment is bugged and it doesn't raise the initial damage. In terms of augment combinations, Thermite plus Extension is going to be awesome for destroying manglers and special enemies. And if you really do want to take on abominations and elites, you could put on Big Game, but make sure to put on Extension because, well, the other 2 minor ammo mods don't work, and Extension will essentially double your damage. But if you want at least the current best augment combination for destroying hordes of zombies, pairing Firebomb and Extension so that you get guaranteed kills through that initial Firebomb activation will get you on average about 15 kills per activation, if you are grouping your zombies pretty tightly. Now, of course, if Treyarch decides to fix this, I will 100% make a new video going over Incendiary and Contact Burn and how they interact with all of these other augments, and I will pin in that in the comment section of this video and hopefully change the title. But overall, I am very disappointed by 2 augments being useless and overall Napalm Burst just not being as good as I remember. In terms of killing potential, Shatterblast with the right augments definitely takes the cake. It's not even close. And if you don't believe me, I did this exact same testing with Shatterblast when it was released. Be sure to check it out here and stay beautiful.